This story delves into themes of isolation, psychological mystery, and the unsettling nature of the unknown. Listener discretion is advised. The crimson dust of Mars clung to everything, even in the pristine filtered air of Earth's mission control. For Dr. Eleanor Vance, lead geologist of the Ares Explorer program, the red planet was a second home. She knew its canyons, its ancient riverbeds, its desolate plains better than some knew their own backyards. Every morning before the sun had fully kissed the horizon over Houston, she was there, immersed in the latest data stream from over 100 million miles away. Today, like countless days before, Eleanor was meticulously reviewing panoramic images from the Ares Explorer rover, currently nestled in the vast expanse of the Elysium Planitia. Her focus was on a particular geological formation, an isolated cluster of jagged, obsidian-black rocks that had been a landmark for the mission since its inception. They were ancient, distinct, and utterly unmoving. They were, in essence, the very definition of geological stability on a planet known for its cataclysmic past. She zoomed in on Black Rock Mesa, as the team affectionately called it, a massive monolithic boulder, roughly the size of a small car, dominated the foreground of her current image. Its surface was scarred by eons of solar wind and micrometeorite impacts, a silent testament to the raw, untamed power of the cosmos. Eleanor moved her cursor, tracing the familiar contours, cross-referencing with the previous day's capture. Standard procedure. Routine. Mind-numbingly predictable. Then her breath hitched. A cold knot tightened in her stomach. She blinked, leaning closer to the holographic display, her finger hovering over the zoom control. No, that wasn't right. The angle, the shadow, it was off. Just a fraction. An almost imperceptible difference that, to Eleanor's finely tuned geological eye, screamed like a siren. The black rock, the monumental, unmoving landmark on Mars. It had shifted. Her first thought was exhaustion. She'd been pulling 18-hour shifts for weeks, fueled by caffeine and an unwavering dedication to the mission. Her eyes must be playing tricks on her. A slight tremor in the rover's mast cam? A subtle change in the lighting conditions affecting her perception? She dismissed it. It had to be. Rocks don't just pick themselves up and move. Not on Mars. Not anywhere unless acted upon by immense geological forces, and there had been no seismic activity reported in the region. No recent impacts. Nothing. She pulled up the previous day's image, then the one before that, and the one from a week ago. She overlaid them, pixel by pixel, using the advanced analytical software developed by Dr. Lena Hansen, the mission's brilliant imaging specialist. The software chirped, indicating perfect alignment on dozens of other fixed points in the landscape. The smaller pebbles, the distant craters, the subtle undulations of the Martian soil, all perfectly static, except for the black rock. What she saw was undeniable. Between the image taken exactly 72 hours prior and the one captured just 8 hours ago, the massive boulder had rotated. Not much, perhaps a degree or two on its axis, and it had moved laterally a mere 3 inches to the west. 3 inches, an insignificant distance in the grand scheme of the universe, but an utterly impossible one for a rock of its size, sitting in a vacuum seemingly untouched. Eleanor felt a prickle of sweat on her forehead, despite the cool hum of the control room. Her heart hammered against her ribs. This wasn't a trick of light. This wasn't a tired brain. This was data. Hard, cold, irrefutable data. She reached for her comms, her voice a little shakier than she intended. "Lena? You got a minute?" A moment later, Lena Hansen's cheerful voice crackled through her earpiece. "Hey Eleanor. Just finishing up the atmospheric sensor calibrations. What's up? Could you come to my station? I need a second pair of eyes on something. Something unusual." Eleanor tried to keep her tone neutral, but she knew the tremor was there. Lena, sharp as she was, would pick up on it immediately. Within minutes, Lena, a whirlwind of bright energy and even brighter ideas, was standing beside Eleanor's console. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and her eyes, usually alight with curiosity, narrowed as she studied Eleanor's face. "Unusual? That's a strong word coming from you, Vance. You usually only use unusual when you found something that threatens to rewrite the textbooks." Eleanor gestured to the holographic display. "Take a look at Black Rock Mesa. Specifically, that big one, the one we designated Sentinel Primed." Lena leaned in, her gaze sweeping over the familiar Martian landscape. She was good, very good. Her eyes moved with the precision of a hawk, scanning for anomalies, for anything out of place. She started with the current image, then, at Eleanor's silent prompting, brought up the previous captures. For a full minute, there was silence, broken only by the soft whirring of the consoles and the distant murmur of other teams. Lena's brow furrowed. Her usual easy smile vanished, replaced by a look of intense concentration. She zoomed in, then out, then recentered. She ran her own diagnostic overlays, her fingers flying across the holographic keyboard. Huh! Lena finally breathed, a low, perplexed sound. That's odd. Eleanor felt a sliver of validation, but it was quickly overshadowed by a growing dread. Odd how? Well, the positional data for Sentinel Prime. It's showing a discrepancy. A slight rotation about 1.8 degrees, and a lateral shift of weight 3.1 inches to the west. But that's impossible. We've got it anchored in the global reference frame. It's a static landmark. Lena rattled off the data, her voice quick and precise, but the underlying bewilderment was clear. Unless there was a data corruption? A glitch in the mast cam's gyros. I ran all the diagnostics, Eleanor said, her voice tight. No errors. All other mapping points are perfectly aligned. Only Sentinel Prime is off. Lena's fingers danced over the controls again, pulling up spectral analyses, thermal readings, anything that might offer an explanation. No seismic activity. No atmospheric pressure front strong enough to dislodge something like that. No impact craters within 100 miles that could have generated enough force. She paused, her eyes wide, meeting Eleanor's. Eleanor, this isn't just odd. This is impossible. The word hung in the air, heavy and chilling. Impossible. Yet there it was. The data. Unambiguous. We need to bring Ben in, Eleanor said, her voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Ben Carter, the unflappable mission director. A man who lived and breathed scientific rigor and empirical evidence. He would demand answers, and they had none. Ben Carter arrived moments later, his usually jovial face etched with concern as he took in the serious expressions of his two lead scientists. He was a man who preferred solutions to mysteries, a pragmatist who had navigated countless unforeseen challenges in the Ares program. But even his calm demeanor seemed to waver as Eleanor and Lena laid out their findings. He listened intently, his gaze moving between the holographic display and their faces. He asked probing questions, challenging their assumptions, pushing for any alternative explanation. Could it be a thermal expansion and contraction cycle? A subtle fracturing that shifted its weight? We've accounted for thermal expansion, Ben, Eleanor explained patiently. The shift is too uniform, too significant for that. And there are no signs of fracturing. The rock is intact. What about a dust devil? Ben pressed, ever the scientist looking for the mundane explanation for the extraordinary. A particularly strong localized vortex? Lena shook her head. Sentinel Prime is too massive, Ben. And the wind speeds recorded in that area over the last week were negligible. Nothing that could move a boulder of that size. Not even close. Ben leaned back, running a hand through his salt and pepper hair. He stared at the image of the shifted rock, then at the comparison overlay, the undeniable discrepancy. The silence in the small corner of the control room grew oppressive. The hum of the machine seemed to fade, replaced by the frantic beating of Eleanor's own heart. So, Ben said slowly, his voice losing its usual certainty, you're telling me a car-sized black rock on a desolate plain of Mars moved itself? Eleanor and Lena exchanged a look. There was no other explanation. No scientific, rational explanation. Yes, Ben, Eleanor confirmed, her voice barely a whisper. That's exactly what the data is telling us. The implications were staggering, terrifying. If a rock could move itself, what else could happen? What else was out there, on that silent red world that defied every known law of physics, every scientific understanding they possessed? The vast, empty expanse of Mars, which had always represented a frontier of scientific discovery, suddenly felt less empty and infinitely more menacing. A profound chill settled over them, a premonition of something utterly unprecedented, something that would tear at the very fabric of their understanding. And this was just the beginning. The immediate aftermath was a silence so profound it felt like a physical weight pressing down on the control room. Every screen, every blinking light, every hum of machinery suddenly seemed to amplify the impossible reality that had just unfolded. Dr. Evelyn Reed, the mission's lead geologist, was the first to break it. Her voice a strained whisper barely audible over the distant drone of the ventilation system. "Run that sequence again," she commanded, her eyes fixed on the main monitor, where the last frozen image of the Martian landscape still held the black rock, now undeniably in a new position. Frame by frame. Zoom in on the coordinates. Her team, a collection of the brightest minds from JPL, Stanford and MIT, moved with a synchronized urgency born from years of high-stakes space exploration. But this wasn't just high stakes. This was unprecedented. Mark Jensen, a young, brilliant data analyst with a reputation for spotting the most minute anomalies, began manipulating the feed. The raw data streamed across his multiple displays, numbers and graphs blurring into a complex tapestry of information. Starting playback at T-5 minutes from the last observed position, Mark announced, his voice tight with a mixture of disbelief and an almost manic excitement. The Martian landscape, an ochre expanse under a pale butterscotch sky, flickered back to life. The rover Perseverance was a distant, patient sentinel, and there, in the foreground, was the black rock, a jagged obsidian monolith, roughly the size of a small car. It had been a landmark since the mission began. Its unique composition and isolated placement had made it a target of interest, but never a source of alarm. Until now. As Mark advanced the frames, the team watched in agonizing slow motion. The rock remained static for several agonizing seconds. Then, with an almost imperceptible shift, it began to move. It wasn't a roll, not a slide, not the gentle settling of a geological feature. It was a definite, deliberate displacement. A few centimeters at first, then more. It seemed to pivot slightly, as if adjusting itself, before settling into its new location, perhaps half a meter from its original spot. The entire event, from start to finish, took less than 3 minutes of Martian time, but it felt like an eternity to the humans watching from millions of miles away. The room erupted in a flurry of hushed exclamations and bewildered questions. Is that possible?" someone murmured, the question hanging heavy in the air. Evelyn, her face pale, leaned closer to the screen, her fingers tracing the faint lines of displacement on the monitor. "Geologically speaking, no. Not without an enormous seismic event, or a gale force wind strong enough to lift a vehicle. And our sensors registered neither." She paused, her voice hardening with the resolve born of scientific rigor. "Run all environmental data from that timestamp. Wind speed, atmospheric pressure, seismic activity, thermal readings. Everything." Mark worked furiously, pulling up layers of telemetry. Wind speed, nominal 6 meters per second. Atmospheric pressure, stable. Seismic activity, negligible. Thermal readings, consistent with ambient Martian surface temperatures. Nothing to suggest any external force capable of moving something of that mass. The silence returned, heavier this time, fraught with unspoken implications. Commander David Miller, the mission director, a man whose career was built on calm under pressure, walked to the front of the room. His gaze swept over the bewildered faces of his team, then settled on the image of the displaced rock. His jaw was set, a muscle ticking subtly in his cheek. "This data is to be locked down," David stated, his voice low and firm, cutting through the rising tension. "No external communications. No unauthorized access. This stays within this room until we understand precisely what we're looking at." He knew the gravity of his words. A discovery of this magnitude, if mishandled, could trigger global panic or worse, a dangerous rush to conclusions. The implications were staggering. If it wasn't geology, if it wasn't wind, what was it? The only other explanation, the one that everyone's minds were screaming but no one dared utter, was that the rock was not a rock at all. Or if it was being manipulated by something else. "Dr. Reed," David continued, turning his full attention to Evelyn, "I need a full analysis of the rock itself, its composition, its estimated mass, any previous observations that might give us a clue. And Mark, I want you to scour every single image, every single data point from the moment Perseverance landed. Look for anything, however small, however insignificant, that might relate to this particular object." Mark nodded, already diving back into the vast archives of data. "Commander, I've already pulled up the initial scans from the landing site. The rock was always there, in that general vicinity. Its initial position was meticulously mapped for navigation purposes. It hasn't moved once in the 347 Martian sols we've been here. Evelyn's brow furrowed. So, it's not an unstable feature that's just now collapsing. It's been static for over a year and then, without any discernible external force, it moves. And not just a little. Half a meter is significant for something estimated to weigh several tons. The team worked through the night, the control room lit by the glow of monitors. Coffee cups piled up, and the air grew thick with unspoken anxieties. Evelyn, with her knack for seeing patterns in chaos, began to piece together a profile of the black rock. Spectral analysis confirms it's primarily basaltic, but with unusual trace elements, she reported hours later, her voice raspy from lack of sleep. Higher concentrations of nickel and iron than typical Martian basalt, and some anomalous isotopic ratios. Nothing that screams alien technology, but definitely unusual for a surface rock in this region. Mark, meanwhile, had found something else. "Commander, Dr. Reed, I've been comparing the terrain around the rock. Look at this." He projected a mosaic of high-resolution images taken over several months. Notice the fine dust, the regolith, around the original position of the rock. It's been undisturbed, but look at the dust under the rock's new position. It appears compressed, and there are very faint, almost invisible linear depressions leading away from the new position, extending about a meter out. Evelyn zoomed in, her breath catching in her throat. Linear depressions? Like tracks. Not tracks in the conventional sense, Mark clarified. But something has definitely pushed the regolith aside. It's too faint to be a rover track, and the pattern doesn't match any known geological process. It's almost as if something very heavy, with a slightly uneven base, had been dragged. The word hung in the air, dragged. But by what? And why? David Miller stared at the screen, his mind racing. The implications were spiraling out of control. A rock that moved on its own. A rock that left faint, unexplainable indentations. The initial thrill of discovery had curdled into a cold, hard dread. They were no longer just observing Mars. They were observing something entirely new, something that defied every known law of physics or geology they understood. "We need more data," David finally declared, his voice firm, cutting through the exhaustion and fear. "We need to get closer. Dr. Reed, prepare a new set of directives for Perseverance. We are going to approach the black rock, but with extreme caution. We're not just taking pictures this time. We're going to get a full spectral readout, thermal imaging, magnetic field readings, anything and everything we can get our instruments on. And we are going to do it from a distance that allows for immediate retreat if necessary." A collective intake of breath swept through the room. Approaching the anomaly was a huge risk. Until now, Perseverance had been a remote observer. Now it was being sent to investigate what was increasingly looking like an active, unknown entity. Evelyn nodded, her scientific curiosity overriding her apprehension. This was what they were here for, after all, to push the boundaries of knowledge. But as she began drafting the commands, a chilling thought settled in her mind. What if the rock wasn't just moving? What if it was aware? The very idea was absurd, yet it felt impossible to shake. The profound chill that had settled over them the moment the rock moved suddenly felt less empty and infinitely more menacing. A profound chill settled over them, a premonition of something utterly unprecedented, something that would tear at the very fabric of their understanding. And this was just the beginning. The screen in the JPL control room, moments ago a mosaic of routine data feeds in static Martian landscapes, now pulsed with a singular, terrifying anomaly. Sarah Miller, the junior data analyst who had first voiced her impossible observation, felt a cold sweat prickle her scalp. Her fingers still hovered over the replay button, her eyes wide, locked on the segment of footage that had shattered their scientific calm. Dr. Evelyn Reed, the mission's lead astrobiologist, was the first to break the stunned silence. Her voice, usually calm and measured, was now a sharp, almost disbelieving whisper. "Run that again, Sarah. Frame by frame. From the moment the rover captured the initial image, through to the second observation." David Chan, the mission lead, his face a mask of controlled urgency, stepped forward, his gaze sweeping across the room. "Everyone focus. What are we seeing? Rule out every possible error. Sensor malfunction? Optical illusion? Dust distortion? Marcus, any seismic activity recorded at that location?" Dr. Marcus Thorne, the chief geologist, a man whose career was built on the immutable laws of planetary physics, shook his head slowly, his brow furrowed in deep concentration. "Negative, David. Our seismic array near the landing site registered nothing significant, not even a whisper of a tremor that could account for a displacement of that magnitude. He gestured towards the screen, his voice tight with an unfamiliar tension. That's a substantial mass. To move it, you'd need a force equivalent to a moderate quake at least. They watched again the high-resolution images of the Martian surface crawling across the main display. The rover Perseverance had captured a panoramic shot of the desolate expanse, the black rock a stark, almost unnerving silhouette against the ochre dust. Then, a few hours later, a subsequent sweep. The difference was undeniable, stark, and utterly against everything they knew. The rock, a monolith estimated to be roughly 20 feet across and 10 feet high, had shifted. Not subtly, not a few inches, but several feet to the west, leaving a shallow, disturbed trough in the regolith where it had once rested. There. Sarah's voice was barely audible, yet held a tremor of profound unease. Look at the shadow lines. And the dust patterns. It's not a trick of light. It's gone. Evelyn, usually the picture of scientific skepticism, felt a different kind of conviction growing within her. Her training demanded she find a rational explanation, yet every passing second, every reanalysis, chipped away at the bedrock of her understanding. David, cross-reference with the atmospheric data. Was there any localized high-wind event? A dust devil perhaps, strong enough to dislodge something so massive? David Chan was already speaking into his comms, his voice clipped and efficient. Control, pull all atmospheric telemetry for Sol 456. Wind speeds, pressure differentials, any anomalous weather patterns in Quadrant 7 Delta. Overlay with the image timestamps. The data streamed in, processed and displayed with dizzying speed. The results were unequivocal. Martian winds, while capable of sculpting vast dunes over millennia, were not strong enough, not even close, to move a rock of that size in a matter of hours. The atmospheric conditions were typical, calm, and utterly unremarkable. Marcus Thorne, his face pale, ran a hand through his thinning hair. No wind. No seismic activity. No known geological process could cause this, not on this timescale, not with this object. He looked at Evelyn, a silent, profound question in his eyes. Then what are we looking at, Evelyn? Evelyn, her mind racing through every conceivable scientific possibility, felt a cold dread begin to coil in her stomach. We're looking at something unprecedented, Marcus. Something that defies every known law of physics we've applied to Mars. She leaned closer to the screen, her gaze fixed on the black rock, now in its new, unsettling position. It didn't just move. It moved intelligently. Look at the displaced dust. It's not scattered randomly. It's consistent with a deliberate slide, a controlled shift. The implications hung heavy in the air, a suffocating weight. A rock, on Mars, moving, deliberately. David Chan, ever the pragmatist, had already moved past the initial shock. Okay, so we've confirmed the movement. We've ruled out environmental factors. What's next? What are the possibilities, however remote? He looked from Marcus to Evelyn, knowing he was asking them to venture into territory usually reserved for science fiction. Evelyn took a deep breath, steeling herself. If it's not external, then it has to be internal. Either the rock itself is not a rock in the traditional sense, or there's something within it or underneath it that caused the displacement. Her voice grew firmer, fueled by scientific imperative. We need a closer look. Much closer. We need spectral analysis. Thermal imaging. We need to determine its composition, its density, if there's any internal heat signature, any energy emission. Marcus, still struggling with the geological blasphemy of the situation, offered a hesitant, almost desperate theory. Could it be a cryovolcanic phenomenon? A pocket of subsurface ice expanding and contracting, pushing it? But the scale, it's just not right. Evelyn dismissed it with a shake of her head. No, Marcus. The speed of the movement, the lack of any corresponding thermal plume or subsurface disturbance. This isn't geology as we know it. Her eyes narrowed, fixed on the dark, featureless mass. This rock, it absorbs almost all light. We've never been able to get a clear spectral reading from it. It's an anomaly even before it started moving. Suddenly, Sarah, who had been meticulously re-examining the displacement trough, spoke up, her voice trembling. Dr. Reed, Dr. Thorne, there's something else. She zoomed in on the disturbed regolith. The marks, they're not just from a slide. There are faint, repeating indentations almost like pressure points. and they lead away from the rock's original position, and then abruptly stop where it settled. A ripple of profound disquiet went through the room. Pressure points? Like something had pushed off the ground? David Chun slammed his hand on the console, the sound echoing in the tense silence. This changes everything. We are no longer observing a geological anomaly. We are observing an active entity. We need to alert NASA Administrator Hayes immediately. But first we need more data. Evelyn, what's the closest the rover can get without risking damage? Evelyn pulled up the rover's current trajectory and the mapping of the area. The original mission plan had Perseverance making a wide sweep around this region, collecting regolith samples further north. It would have passed within 50 meters of the rock's initial position. But now with its movement and these new indentations, she trailed off, a chilling realization dawning on her. If it had moved just a few hours earlier, the rover would have been directly in its path, or even worse, directly over its original resting place. The notion that the rover could have been crushed, or worse, that it might have encountered whatever moved the rock, sent a fresh wave of fear through the control room. "David," Marcus said, his voice low and urgent, "we have to consider the possibility that this isn't just an inert object. What if it's controlled? What if it's observing us?" The unspoken word hung in the air. Life. Not just microbial life, which Evelyn had dedicated her career to finding, but something complex, something capable of manipulating its environment on a scale they had never imagined for Mars. Something that could move a 20-foot rock. David Chun made the difficult decision. "Sarah, prep a secure channel to Administrator Hayes. Do not include anyone else on the call. Evelyn, Marcus, I need your initial assessment. Keep it concise, scientifically rigorous, but do not omit the implications." He turned to the lead rover pilot, Jessica Roberts. "Jessica, prepare a new trajectory for Perseverance. We're going in closer, much closer. I want the rover to approach the rock's new position, from a safe distance, but within range for high-resolution imaging and spectral analysis. Prioritize safety, but we need these readings." Jessica, her face grim, nodded. "Understood, David. Preparing approach vector. It'll be slow, very slow." As Jessica began inputting the commands, a new alert flashed on Sarah's secondary monitor, the one usually reserved for background environmental readings. It was faint, almost imperceptible amidst the normal Martian static, but it was there. A blip, a subtle fluctuation in the electromagnetic spectrum, emanating from the precise coordinates of the black rock. Sarah's voice was a strained whisper. "David, Evelyn, I'm picking up something. A faint energy signature. It's coming from the rock itself." The air in the control room grew thick with a sudden profound silence, heavy with a mixture of terror and awe. The black rock, which had defied their understanding by simply moving, was now broadcasting. The implications were staggering, pushing them past the boundaries of geology, past astrobiology, into a realm of the utterly unknown. As Perseverance began its slow, deliberate crawl towards the now infamous black rock, a profound chill settled over them, a premonition of something utterly unprecedented, something that would tear at the very fabric of their understanding. And this was just the beginning. The rover, named Vigilance 7, edged forward, each meter an eternity. The Martian dust, fine as powdered rust, swirled around its wheels, kicked up by the wind, obscuring and revealing the desolate landscape in equal measure. Back on Earth, the atmosphere in mission control was so thick with unspoken tension, you could almost taste it. Michael, usually a bastion of calm, found his leg bouncing uncontrollably under the console. Jessica, ever the pragmatist, was meticulously reviewing every telemetry data stream, her brow furrowed in concentration, searching for any anomaly, any glitch that might explain the inexplicable. David, the youngest of the lead team, kept running his hand through his hair, his eyes glued to the main screen displaying the rover's live feed, while Emily, seated beside him, chewed on her lip, a nervous habit she'd abandoned years ago. The journey to the Black Rock, though only a few hundred meters, felt like a transgalactic voyage. Every pixel on the screen was scrutinized, every shadow analyzed. As Vigilance 7 drew closer, the sheer scale of the anomaly became more apparent. It wasn't just a rock. It was a monolith towering over the surrounding terrain, its obsidian surface absorbing the weak Martian sunlight, giving it an otherworldly presence. It stood in stark contrast to the familiar ruddy landscape, a dark, silent sentinel. Then, the first high-resolution images began to stream in. Michael leaned forward, his breath catching in his throat. The surface wasn't merely black. It was a polished, almost reflective obsidian, unlike any basalt or igneous rock they had ever catalogued on Mars. But what truly sent a shiver down his spine were the subtle details. Under the extreme magnification, faint, intricate patterns began to emerge across its face. These weren't geological striations or erosion marks. They were too regular, too precise. Geometric forms interlocking and repeating, almost imperceptible at first glance, but undeniably there, etched into the very material of the rock. They weren't symbols or glyphs, not in the traditional sense, but complex, crystalline structures seemingly embedded within the rock's surface, not carved onto it. "Zoom in on that section, David," Jessica commanded, her voice tight with a mixture of awe and apprehension. David's fingers flew across the keyboard, bringing a section of the rock's surface into even sharper focus. The patterns resolved themselves further, revealing a breathtaking complexity. It was like looking at a microchip magnified a million times, but organic, flowing, yet utterly structured. "My God," Emily whispered, her eyes wide. It's not natural." Michael nodded slowly, a cold dread seeping into his bones. "No, it's not. Not by any known geological process." The rover continued its approach, now circling the base of the monolith, its robotic arm extending, equipped with a suite of sensors designed to analyze the composition and physical properties of Martian rocks. As the arm neared the surface, an alarm, subtle but insistent, chirped on Jessica's console. "Thermal anomaly," she announced, her voice strained. "Vigilance 7 is detecting a localized heat signature coming from the black rock. It's faint but definitely there. Approximately 2 degrees Celsius above ambient Martian temperature." A silence descended upon the room, heavier than before. Mars was a frigid world, its surface temperature often plummeting to -60 degrees Celsius. A 2-degree rise might seem insignificant, but for a rock, especially one exposed to the vacuum of space and the Martian cold, it was highly unusual. Rocks didn't generate their own heat. Is it residual heat from recent movement? David ventured, trying to find a rational explanation. Michael shook his head. Unlikely. Even if it did move, the heat generated from friction wouldn't sustain itself for this long, not in this environment. And a 2-degree difference is too uniform across the surface for friction alone. Unless, Emily began, her voice barely audible, it's generating its own heat. The implication hung in the air, a terrifying possibility. If the rock was generating its own heat, it meant it wasn't just a rock. It meant it was active, alive perhaps in some alien sense. The rover positioned its alpha particle X-ray spectrometer, or APXS, against the dark surface. This instrument was designed to determine the elemental composition of rocks and soil. The data streamed back, and Jessica's eyes widened. "Unusual composition," she reported, her fingers flying across her keyboard, cross-referencing the readings with known Martian geological databases. High concentrations of elements not typically found together on Mars, or in such purity. Silicon, oxygen, iron, yes, but also trace amounts of elements we don't have a baseline for. And the crystalline structure, it's unlike anything we've ever seen. It's incredibly dense, almost perfectly uniform at a molecular level. Michael stood up, walking closer to the main screen, as if proximity would offer greater understanding. The image of the black rock, with its intricate, almost alien patterns and the faint, unsettling thermal glow, seemed to mock their scientific understanding. This wasn't a discovery, it was a confrontation. "Run a full spectroscopic analysis," Michael ordered, his voice firm, trying to regain control amidst the swirling uncertainty. "Check for any energy emissions, any electromagnetic frequencies, anything at all." Minutes crawled by, each second stretching into an eternity. The team watched the data streams, their faces illuminated by the eerie glow of the monitors. Then the new data began to populate the screens. "Michael, look at this," Jessica said, her voice a strained whisper. On her screen, a graph pulsed, showing a faint, rhythmic energy signature emanating from the black rock. It wasn't a random burst, it was a structured, repeating pattern, almost like a heartbeat, but far too slow, far too deliberate. It was a low-frequency electromagnetic pulse, barely detectable, but undeniably present. "It's sending out a signal," Emily breathed, her eyes fixed on the pulsating graph. David, who had been trying to process the sheer impossibility of it all, finally spoke, his voice filled with a tremor of fear. Or it's receiving one. Or it's just on. The realization hit them like a physical blow. This wasn't a natural formation. This wasn't even a dormant ancient artifact. This was something active, something that possessed an internal mechanism, something that was communicating or at least emitting energy in a structured way. The patterns on its surface, the anomalous heat, the impossible density, and now this rhythmic pulse. The black rock wasn't just on Mars. It was alive, or at least operational, and it had moved. A wave of profound unease swept through mission control. The silence was no longer just tense. It was pregnant with a new, terrifying understanding. They had come to Mars seeking answers, seeking the origins of life, seeking to understand the universe. Instead, they had stumbled upon an enigma that rewrote every assumption, every law of physics they thought they knew. The black rock was not merely an object, it was a declaration, a message, and they had just begun to decipher its terrifying implications. The universe, they were beginning to grasp, was far stranger, far more ancient, and infinitely more dangerous than they had ever dared to imagine. And the black rock, now confirmed to be an artificial construct of unimaginable power, was just starting to reveal its true nature. The revelation hit NASA with the force of a cosmic hammer blow. The black rock was not a natural phenomenon, not a geological anomaly, but a colossal, ancient construct, brimming with an alien power that defied every known law of physics. The confirmation, delivered with a grim certainty by Michael's team of analysts, plunged the entire mission into a new, terrifying phase. The initial awe had curdled into a palpable dread. Dr. David Chun, director of the Mars Exploration Program, convened an emergency, highly classified meeting. The room, usually a hive of vibrant scientific debate, was now hushed, heavy with the weight of the impossible. Screens flickered with newly processed data, projections of the rock's internal structure, and spectral analyses that sent shivers down the spines of even the most seasoned astrophysicists. "We're looking at something that predates most terrestrial life by billions of years," Michael explained, his voice strained, pointing to a holographic projection of the rock that seemed to pulse with a faint, internal light. "Its composition is unlike anything in our periodic table. The energy signature. It's not thermal, not electromagnetic in any conventional sense. It's something else." Jessica, usually composed, fidgeted with her stylus. "And the movement? The subtle repositioning we observed initially? We now believe it wasn't passive. It was deliberate. A reorientation." David leaned forward, his face etched with worry. "A reorientation for what purpose, Dr. Hayes?" Jessica shook her head slowly. "That's the terrifying question, sir. But the data from rover Alpha confirms it. After its last shift, the rock began to emit a low-frequency resonance. It's subtle, but it's there. And it's growing. The resonance wasn't a sound in the traditional sense, but a vibrational frequency detected by rover Alpha's seismic sensors, far exceeding their normal operating parameters. It was a rhythmic, almost organic thrum that seemed to emanate from deep within the construct, a heartbeat of an ancient, alien machine. Over the next few Martian sols, the situation escalated dramatically. The resonance intensified, morphing from a subtle thrum into a deep, pervasive hum that began to interfere with rover Alpha's sensitive instruments. Data packets became corrupted, sensor readings fluctuated wildly, and the rover's internal diagnostic systems reported anomalous power surges. "It's like it's creating a localized gravitational field distortion," Emily, a young but brilliant theoretical physicist on Michael's team, hypothesized during a frantic late-night session. Her eyes were bloodshot from lack of sleep, but sparkled with a desperate curiosity. "The energy isn't just radiating outwards, it's manipulating space-time around it. That's why the rover's gyroscopes are drifting, why the laser altimeter is giving us junk readings." Michael stared at the data feed, a knot tightening in his stomach. Gravitational manipulation? That's beyond anything we've conceived. It also means the movement wasn't just a physical shift. It was a controlled repositioning using forces we can't even begin to comprehend. The implications were staggering. If the black rock could manipulate gravity, then its capabilities were virtually limitless. It wasn't just a powerful construct. It was a fundamental rewriter of physical laws. Then came the visual. Rover Alpha, despite its increasing instability, captured a series of images that stunned everyone into silence. The surface of the black rock, previously smooth and featureless, began to subtly ripple. Not like water but like a shifting mosaic of impossible geometry, darker than the Martian night, yet somehow absorbing all light. The ripples created patterns that formed and dissolved with unnerving precision. They weren't random. They were intricate, complex, and seemed to possess an internal logic that defied human understanding. "My God," David whispered, staring at the projected image. "What is that?" "It's a projection," Jessica stammered, her voice barely audible. "Or a field. It's not physical changes to the rock's surface, but an energy field manifesting visually. Look at the way it interacts with ambient light. It's actively bending it." The patterns weren't static. They evolved slowly at first, then with increasing speed, like an alien language unfolding before their very eyes. Geometric shapes, fractal designs, and symbols that hinted at a vast, unknown vocabulary danced across the rock's face. It was as if the construct was awakening, shedding a dormant skin to reveal a deeper, more active state. Michael felt a cold dread creep up his spine. This wasn't just a relic. It was a presence. "Run a pattern recognition algorithm," he instructed Emily, his voice tight. "Compare it against every known mathematical sequence, every ancient script, every theoretical construct we have." Hours later, Emily's exhausted voice crackled over the comms. "Sir, I've got something. It's not a language, not in any way we understand, but there's a recurring sequence, a prime number progression, but embedded within a multidimensional lattice structure it's beyond Euclidean geometry. It implies a spatial understanding that goes far beyond 3 dimensions." "Multidimensional?" David asked, his mind reeling. "Yes, sir. It's like watching a shadow of a 4-dimensional object rotating in 3 dimensions. We're only seeing a fraction of the full pattern. But the prime number sequence, it's a universal constant. It's a signature of intelligence." The implication was chilling. The black rock wasn't just a machine, it was a communicator. And it was speaking in a language of pure mathematics and multidimensional geometry, a silent, profound declaration of its alien origin and advanced capabilities. As the days turned into weeks, the black rock's activity intensified further. The resonant hum became a constant, low thrum, affecting not just rover Alpha, but also rover Beta, which was positioned kilometers away. Both rovers began experiencing intermittent system failures, their internal clocks drifting, their power cells draining faster than expected. It was as if the rock was drawing energy, or perhaps broadcasting an energy that disrupted planetary probes. The geometric patterns on its surface grew more intricate, faster, almost mesmerizing. Some scientists theorized it was a data stream, an active broadcast of information. Others feared it was a warning, or worse, a preparation. Michael, haunted by the images, spent every waking moment trying to decipher the patterns. He felt an almost obsessive pull towards them, a strange mix of terror and intellectual hunger. He noticed something else, something subtle that the algorithms had initially dismissed as noise. Within the evolving geometric patterns, there were brief, almost subliminal flashes of what looked like other patterns. Patterns that seemed to repeat, not on the rock's surface, but within the light it bent. "Zoom in on the refraction anomalies," Michael instructed his team, pointing to a specific segment of the visual feed. "Enhance the light dispersion. I think there's something else being projected, not on the surface but through it." After agonizing hours of computational processing, a new image materialized on the main screen. It wasn't a pattern on the rock. It was a projection, a faint, shimmering 3-dimensional construct that hovered just above the black rock's surface. It was a map. Not a map of Mars or even of their solar system. It was a star map, intricately detailed, showing celestial bodies, nebulae, and constellations utterly alien to human astronomy. And at the center of this impossible map, radiating lines of light, was a single prominent star system, marked with an unmistakable glowing symbol. The symbol was identical to one of the recurring geometric patterns they had detected on the black rock's surface. A collective gasp filled the control room. This wasn't just a construct, it was a beacon. It was broadcasting its origin, its home. And the implication was terrifying. If it was broadcasting its home, was it also calling for something? Or was it simply a dormant marker, now reactivated, pointing to a place that might still exist, teeming with the beings who created this impossible artifact? The map began to slowly rotate, then zoom in, focusing on that marked star system. It showed planets, moons, and then, inexplicably, a sequence of images. Not abstract patterns now, but clear, almost photographic representations. Structures, cities, and then beings. They weren't humanoid. They were tall, slender, with multiple limbs and heads that seemed to refract light, constantly shifting in form. They moved with an unsettling grace, their forms suggesting a species that lived in a higher dimensional space, only partially manifesting in 3. The images were fleeting, almost dreamlike, but undeniably a depiction of intelligent life. The black rock wasn't just an artificial construct. It was a museum, a communication device, and a historical archive all rolled into one impossibly advanced package. And it was now actively projecting its story, its creators, and their home. But as the final image of the alien beings faded, replaced by the rotating star map, a new, far more unsettling element emerged. The central star system on the map, the origin point, began to pulse with a deep, ominous red light. And then from that pulsing point, a single thin line of light began to extend outwards, across the vast cosmic distances depicted on the map, stretching directly towards Earth. The room fell into an absolute chilling silence. Every single person in the control center felt the blood drain from their faces. The black rock wasn't just revealing its past. It was pointing to a future where humanity was no longer alone, and the ancient, alien power it contained was now actively engaging with their world, broadcasting its presence across the void, and perhaps calling something home. Its past. It was pointing to a future where humanity was no longer alone, and the ancient, alien power it contained was now actively engaging with their world, broadcasting its presence across the void, and perhaps calling something home. The realization hung heavy in the air of the control room, a suffocating blanket of awe and dread. David, usually the picture of stoicism, ran a hand over his face, his jaw tight. "Calling something home," he echoed, the words barely a whisper, yet they reverberated with the weight of an unimaginable future. "You mean it's not just transmitting information, it's reaching out?" Dr. Thorne, his eyes still fixed on the scrolling data, nodded slowly. "The energy signature isn't just a constant data stream, David. It has a rhythmic pulse, a modulated frequency that repeats with an almost intentional cadence. It's a beacon, a very loud, very clear beacon." Emily, her fingers flying across her console, zoomed in on a particular segment of the frequency spectrum. "It's not just a beacon, Eris. It's incredibly complex. We're talking about petabytes of data encoded within each pulse, far more than just a hello, we're here. It's like an entire library being broadcast, but simultaneously, it's also sending out a distinct repeating pattern that's almost like a signature. A signature designed to be recognized, to be interpreted as an invitation, or perhaps a summons." Jessica leaned forward, her voice laced with a tremor. "A summons? To what? To whom?" "That," Dr. Thorne said, turning from the main screen to face his team, his expression grim, "is the question that keeps me awake at night. This isn't a random geological anomaly. This isn't even just an ancient artifact. This is a piece of technology deliberately placed, deliberately activated, and now actively communicating. It has waited for millennia, perhaps for the right conditions, or perhaps for us to reach a certain level of technological sophistication to even detect its activation." Michael, ever the pragmatist, interjected. "So, if it's calling something home, what's the timeline? How far does this signal reach? And how long until whatever's home responds?" Emily brought up a holographic projection of the solar system, then expanded it to a vast swathe of the Milky Way. "Based on the power output and the signal's coherence across astronomical distances, we're talking about a broadcast that could theoretically reach hundreds, if not thousands, of light years. The sheer directional precision, despite its apparent omnidirectionality from Mars, suggests it's designed to blanket a colossal volume of space." "Hundreds of light years," Jessica breathed, her eyes wide. That's an enormous range. What if something is already on its way?" "Even at light speed," Dr. Thorne explained, "a response from 100 light years away would take a century to reach us. From 1,000, a millennium. But that's assuming what's home is just sitting there, waiting for the signal to activate, and then immediately sending a reply at light speed. What if home is closer? What if home has been monitoring us, or Mars, for a long time, and this activation was merely a prearranged trigger?" A chilling silence descended. The idea of an alien intelligence having potentially observed humanity for ages, merely waiting for an ancient Martian beacon to light up, was almost too profound to grasp. It shifted the entire paradigm of their existence, not just from being alone, but from being unaware of being watched. "We need to understand this data stream, Emily," Dr. Thorne commanded, his voice regaining its scientific urgency. "Every byte. Is there any decipherable pattern, any language, any mathematical constant that stands out?" Emily nodded, her brow furrowed in intense concentration. "I've been running multiple algorithms, cross-referencing against every known mathematical sequence, every linguistic structure, even speculative artificial intelligence communication protocols. It's incredibly complex. Imagine trying to understand a supercomputer's entire operating system by just listening to its network traffic. But there are repeating elements, certain mathematical constants, prime number sequences, fundamental physical laws. They're embedded. It's like a Rosetta Stone, but one that's still mostly in an unknown script. So it's trying to teach us, or whatever is out there, how to understand it." Michael mused. "Or it's providing the fundamental building blocks for communication," Emily clarified. "It's starting with the universals, the things any advanced civilization would likely understand. The problem is, after those initial primer elements, the data becomes incredibly dense and abstract. It's like it's saying 1 + 1 is equal to 2, and then immediately jumping to quantum field theory in a language we don't recognize." David, who had been listening intently, finally spoke up, his voice low and serious. "What about Earth? How long before the signal is detected by other observatories? Or worse, by less friendly entities?" Dr. Thorne turned to him, his expression grave. "That's already a critical concern, David. NASA has implemented a full-spectrum jamming protocol locally around the Martian site, attempting to contain the signal's detectable footprint. But the sheer power of this broadcast makes full containment impossible. We're operating under the assumption that other nations, perhaps even private entities with sophisticated deep space listening arrays, will eventually pick up something anomalous. The question isn't if, but when and what they'll make of it. And once they do," Jessica added, "the global implications, it won't just be a scientific discovery. It'll be a geopolitical earthquake. The first confirmed contact, a beacon calling something to us. Every nation will want a piece of it, or worse, want to control it." The weight of their discovery seemed to expand beyond the confines of their control room, beyond Mars, to encompass the entire planet Earth. Humanity, unknowingly, was on the precipice of an irreversible transformation. "We need to accelerate our analysis," Dr. Thorne urged, his gaze sweeping over his team. "Emily, focus on any patterns that might indicate a directionality, or even a signature within the broadcast itself. Something that might identify the sender, or what it's calling. Jessica, Michael, continue your analysis of the rock's material properties. Every detail might be a clue. David, maintain communication with Earth, emphasize the unprecedented nature of this, but continue to stress the need for absolute discretion. This information cannot become public until we have a clearer understanding of what we're dealing with." As Eris spoke, a faint, almost imperceptible tremor ran through the control room. It wasn't the usual structural settling, nor the hum of machinery. It was different, a low-frequency vibration that seemed to resonate deep within their bones. "Did anyone else feel that?" Michael asked, his eyes darting around the room. Emily looked up from her console, her face pale. "My instruments, the seismic sensors on the Odyssey rover, they're picking up something. A distinct, rhythmic pulse, originating from deep within the Martian crust, directly beneath the black rock." Dr. Thorne's heart hammered against his ribs. "Is it geological activity? A Marsquake?" "No," Emily replied, her voice strained. "The pattern isn't chaotic. It's too regular. It's mirroring the broadcast frequency. Not just the data stream, but the underlying rhythmic pulse. It's like the rock isn't just transmitting from its surface. It's vibrating, resonating, all the way down into the planet itself." A cold dread seeped into Eris Thorne's mind. The rock wasn't merely a transmitter. It was an anchor, a part of something much larger, something buried deep within Mars. And now, that buried something was beginning to stir, responding to the call it had initiated millennia ago. The tremor intensified slightly, a subtle but insistent thrumming that filled the control room. A silent, powerful heartbeat emanating from the heart of a dead world. The call was not just going out, it was also waking something up. and the team could only brace themselves for what that meant. The insistent thrumming that filled the control room, a silent, powerful heartbeat emanating from the heart of a dead world, was no longer just an echo. It was a crescendo. It resonated in their chests, a low primal hum that seemed to bypass their ears entirely, shaking the very foundations of the facility. The lights in the control room flickered wildly, the massive display screens momentarily glitching with static before snapping back into focus, only to flicker again, like a dying star struggling to hold on to its last light. On Mars, the situation was far more dire. The rover's primary camera feed, which had been a stable window to the desolate landscape, began to distort violently. Colors bled into unnatural hues, geometric lines fractured across the image, and then, for a terrifying second, the entire display dissolved into pure, swirling chaos, a blizzard of corrupted data. Sarah slammed her fist on her console, her voice tight with alarm. Loss of telemetry. Partial power failure on Rover 7. Autonomy protocols are failing. Ben, his face a mask of intense concentration, frantically tried to re-establish a stable connection, his fingers flying across the holographic keyboard. The feed flickered back, heavily degraded, the image pixelated and streaked with interference. But what they saw, even through the digital noise, sent a collective gasp through the room. A sound of profound disbelief and dawning horror. The black rock, once a monolithic, inert presence, was no longer inert. Fine hairline cracks, barely visible before, now pulsed with a faint, internal violet light, like veins of alien energy beneath its surface. As they watched, mesmerized and terrified, the cracks deepened, widened, tracing intricate patterns across the rock's obsidian face. It was as if an ancient seed, buried for eons, was slowly, agonizingly germinating. Evelyn, her eyes wide with a mixture of scientific wonder and profound dread, leaned closer to the main screen, her voice barely a whisper. It's expanding. Not just moving, Mark. It's growing. Or rather, it's unfolding. Like some kind of impossible origami. Ben, meanwhile, was hunched over his console, oblivious to everything but the data stream scrolling across his personal display. The signal. It's not just a broadcast anymore. It's a command. A series of complex instructions for self-assembly or self-replication. It's using the Martian regolith, the minerals around it, as raw material. I'm seeing geological signatures being absorbed, processed. He looked up, his face pale, his eyes gleaming with a terrifying realization. It's eating Mars. Sarah, finally wresting some semblance of control back from the rover's failing systems, brought up new sensor readings, her voice strained. Energy output is spiking off the charts. It's absorbing ambient radiation, converting geological energy. It's a massive energy sink, Commander. It's draining everything in a 10-kilometer radius. Our atmospheric sensors are showing localized pressure drops, temperature fluctuations that shouldn't be possible. Mark, his jaw tight, watched the unfolding spectacle on the main screen. The thrumming in the room had intensified, becoming a physical pressure against their bodies. Draining? For what purpose, Ben? Is it building a weapon? A beacon? What is its ultimate objective? On screen, the transformation accelerated with a horrifying silent grace. What looked like segmented plates of the rock began to articulate, shifting with an impossible precision. Jagged edges smoothed, planar surfaces emerged, and the violet light intensified, casting long, alien shadows across the desolate Martian landscape. It was no longer a rock. It was becoming a structure, a machine of unimaginable scale and complexity. Then Ben cried out, his voice hoarse with excitement and fear. I have it. A partial translation. It's not a language in the traditional sense, more like an architectural blueprint, a functional script describing its own construction. It's building a receiver, a massive one, but also a transmitter, even more powerful than the initial one. Its current energy output is already eclipsing anything we've ever observed. Evelyn felt a cold dread settle deep in her stomach. A bigger transmitter? To whom, Ben? To what? And what could possibly need that much power? The structure continued its relentless construction, oblivious to their terror, its purpose unfolding with chilling clarity. Spindly, almost skeletal appendages extended from its core, like metallic roots seeking purchase in the Martian soil. They began to dig, to churn the surface, pulling up dust and rock that seemed to be instantly absorbed into the growing mass, disappearing into the violet glow. It was consuming Mars, reshaping it, terraforming it not for life, but for its own mysterious ends. Sarah's voice was strained, her eyes darting between her console and the main display. Commander, the energy signature. It's not just local anymore. It's pushing out. It's affecting our orbital satellites. We're losing contact with Mariner 12. And the communication relays. They're getting saturated with its signal. It's trying to override our systems, to silence us, to blind us to its progress. Mark slammed his hand on the console, the sound echoing in the thrumming room. Can we shut it down? Can we disrupt it? We have to try something. Ben shook his head, his eyes glued to the torrent of data streams, a look of grim resignation on his face. We're past that, Mark. It's not a device we can simply switch off. It's an active, self-sustaining entity, drawing power from the planet itself. Its energy field is too vast, too complex. Any attempt to remotely disable it would likely be futile, and worse, could provoke an unknown, potentially catastrophic reaction. The air in the control room was thick with unspoken fear, a palpable weight pressing down on them. This wasn't just a scientific discovery. It was an invasion, a relentless, silent takeover of a planet, happening before their very eyes. The thrumming had become a pulse, a rhythmic beat that seemed to synchronize with their own heartbeats, a chilling reminder of the entity's growing, unstoppable power. Evelyn looked at the screens, at the alien architecture rising from the dust, her mind racing through ancient myths and dire prophecies. It's not just building a transmitter, Ben. It's building a gateway, a conduit for something to come through, or perhaps for something to return. Just then, the structure on Mars reached a critical stage. With a final blinding flash of violet light that momentarily overloaded the rover's damaged cameras, a central aperture, a gaping maw, opened at its apex. From within, not a light, but a profound inky blackness, deeper than any shadow, began to emanate. It wasn't absorbing light. It was creating an absence of it, a void that seemed to pull at the very fabric of reality. And as the team watched, frozen in horror, their hearts pounding in unison with the alien thrum, something began to stir within that impossible darkness, a faint, almost imperceptible ripple on the edge of the void, as if a veil was being drawn back, revealing a kaleidoscopic void, a shifting tapestry of impossible geometry woven from pure light and absolute darkness. It wasn't a static image, but a living, breathing paradox, constantly reconfiguring itself within the impossible space of the black rock. The faint ripple had intensified into a shimmering, almost liquid distortion, then resolved into intricate patterns that defied all known physics. They were fractals, yet not fractals. Algorithms, yet they pulsed with an undeniable, terrifying sentience. Emily gasped, her breath catching in her throat, a sound lost in the rising crescendo of the alien thrum. Her scientific mind, usually a fortress of logic and reason, reeled. This wasn't merely an energy signature. It was a language, a complex, multidimensional calculus unfolding before their very eyes. The patterns swirled, coalesced, and dissolved in microseconds, each transformation hinting at a deeper, incomprehensible meaning. Colors that didn't exist in the human spectrum flickered at the edges of her vision, leaving phantom afterimages on her retina. Michael, his hand hovering over the evasive thruster controls, felt a primal dread clawing at his gut. His training, his instincts screamed danger, but there was no quantifiable threat to react to. No approaching vessel, no energy weapon signature. Just this impossible display that seemed to consume the very light around it, yet simultaneously radiated its own, utterly alien illumination. The cabin light seemed dim, almost irrelevant, against the backdrop of the rock's internal spectacle. He tried to focus on his instruments, but they were in chaos, spitting out corrupted data and alarming, unprecedented energy readings that spiked and plummeted with the rhythmic thrum. David, ever the pragmatist, was frantically trying to recalibrate the sensor array. It's generating a localized gravitational field, he stammered, his voice tight with disbelief. Fluctuating wildly. And there's a resonance frequency that's interfering with our comms, our life support, everything. The ship shuddered, not from an impact, but from an internal vibration, as if the very atoms of the Ares were being gently, but relentlessly, pulled and stretched by an unseen hand. The thrum wasn't just audible now, it was a physical force pressing in on them, vibrating through the deck plates, up their legs into their chests. Jessica, usually the calmest under pressure, felt a cold tendril of panic wrap around her heart. Her medical scanners, designed to detect even the most subtle physiological changes, were overloading. Her own heart rate was erratic, a frantic drumbeat echoing the thrumming from the rock. She tried to hail Earth, but the comms were dead, a cacophony of white noise and distorted alien frequencies. Then a new sensation washed over her, a chilling awareness that bypassed her ears and eyes, settling directly into her mind. It was a sense of being analyzed, not just observed but dissected, understood, stripped bare. A profound alien intellect was probing, examining, categorizing. It was less a feeling and more a direct, intrusive thought, cold and clinical, utterly devoid of emotion. "Does anyone else feel that?" Jessica whispered, her voice barely audible above the escalating thrum. Like it's looking inside us?" Emily, her eyes still locked on the mesmerizing, terrifying dance of light and shadow, slowly nodded. "Yes," she breathed, her voice raspy. It's not just visual. It's cognitive. It's interacting with our minds, trying to understand us." A strange, almost magnetic pull emanated from the rock, a yearning to dive deeper into its impossible logic, to comprehend the cosmic ballet unfolding. But beneath that intellectual hunger lay a profound, instinctive terror. What if understanding came at the cost of their sanity? Or something far worse? The patterns within the void began to shift again, growing more complex, more intricate. They started to form structures that, while utterly alien, held a disturbing familiarity. Not human shapes, not even biological ones, but architectural forms, impossible cities built of pure energy, their spires reaching into an unseen sky, their foundations rooted in an unfathomable abyss. Then the structures began to move, to rearrange themselves, like pieces on a colossal cosmic chessboard. It's demonstrating something," David muttered, his eyes wide with a mixture of terror and awe. "It's showing us what it is, or what it does." One particular pattern began to stabilize, forming a single repeating symbol within the chaos. It wasn't a letter, or a number, or any known glyph. It was a complex, interlocking series of lines and curves, radiating an almost painful light. And as they watched, transfixed, the symbol began to pulse, in perfect synchronicity with the thrumming that now rattled their very bones. "That symbol," Emily began, a new horrifying realization dawning on her. "It's not just a pattern. It's a key, a piece of information." She felt an overwhelming urge to decode it, to understand its meaning, even as every fiber of her being screamed to flee. The alien presence in her mind intensified, a cold, analytical probe dissecting her thoughts, her fears, her knowledge. It felt like her deepest secrets, her most cherished memories, were being laid bare for an unknown entity to scrutinize. Michael gripped the controls, his knuckles white. "Emily, David, Jessica, what do? We can't just sit here. This thing, it's not passive. It's doing something to us. To the ship." The atmospheric controls flickered, the cabin temperature began to drop precipitously, and a faint, acrid smell, like ozone mixed with something metallic and burnt, permeated the air. Warning lights bloomed across the console, indicating critical system failures. "We can't move, Michael," David said, his voice strained. "The gravitational fluctuations are too severe. Any attempt to maneuver now would rip the Ares apart." He pointed to a rapidly escalating reading on his display. "It's not localized anymore. It's expanding. The entire space around the rock is being warped. We're caught in its field." Jessica clutched her head, a sharp, piercing pain lancing through her temples. The intrusive presence in her mind was no longer subtle. It was a full frontal assault, a torrent of alien data flooding her consciousness. She saw flashes of images that made no sense. Impossible stars, galaxies folding in on themselves, vast, empty spaces punctuated by fleeting bursts of energy. It was beautiful and horrifying, a glimpse into a reality that would shatter the human psyche. "It's communicating," she gasped, tears welling in her eyes. "It's showing us something. A history, a purpose. I can't, it's too much." Her nose began to bleed, a thin trickle of crimson running down her lip. Emily rushed to her side, her own mind reeling from the mental assault, but her medical training kicked in. She tried to comfort Jessica, but the words felt hollow in the face of such overwhelming alien contact. The symbol within the black rock pulsed brighter, faster, its light now almost blinding, its thrumming a deafening roar that vibrated through their very bones, threatening to tear them apart from the inside. Then the patterns within the void began to converge, drawing inward, compressing the sprawling architecture, the alien symbols, the kaleidoscopic light, into a single intensely bright point. The thrumming reached an unbearable pitch, a frequency that seemed to tear at the fabric of reality itself. The Ares groaned under the immense, unseen pressure, its hull plates creaking, its internal systems failing one by one. It's collapsing in on itself, Michael yelled, fighting to stay conscious against the overwhelming sensory assault. Or opening something new. The single point of light, impossibly bright, began to expand again. But this time, it wasn't forming patterns or symbols. It was forming a shape, a distinct three-dimensional form, emerging from the heart of the black rock, pushing through the veil of impossible light and darkness. It was slow, agonizingly slow, as if struggling to manifest in their reality. The gravitational field intensified exponentially, pinning them to their seats. The air in the cabin grew thin, cold, crackling with static electricity. The alien presence in their minds shifted from analytical to something more active. A profound sense of urgency, of impending transformation, washed over them. And then, with a final shuddering thrum that resonated deep within their souls, the shape fully emerged. It was not organic, not mechanical, not anything they had ever conceived of. It was a crystalline structure, impossibly complex, shimmering with the same non-Euclidean geometry that had danced within the void. It floated effortlessly, silently, in the heart of the black rock, radiating an energy that was both profoundly ancient and terrifyingly new. But it was what was inside the crystalline structure that seized their breath, freezing their blood. Within its clear, multifaceted walls, suspended in an ethereal glow, was a single perfect sphere. And within that sphere, a single unblinking eye. Not an eye like any creature on Earth, but an iris of swirling starlight, a pupil of absolute void, observing them with an intelligence so vast, so profound, so utterly alien, it threatened to unravel their very sanity. The eye blinked, and as it did, a single piercing thought echoed in all their minds, clear as a bell, cutting through the chaos, through the fear, through the thrumming. Asterisk, you have found us. Asterisk. The single piercing thought echoed in all their minds, clear as a bell, cutting through the chaos, through the fear, through the thrumming. Asterisk, you have found us. Asterisk. Silence. A profound, suffocating silence that swallowed the buzzing of the habitat, the distant hiss of oxygen recyclers, even the frantic beat of their own hearts. It wasn't an absence of sound, but a void created by an overwhelming presence. Michael stumbled back, his hand instinctively reaching for the comms, but his fingers found only the cold, hard plastic of his helmet. He couldn't speak. No one could. The message hadn't been heard. It had been implanted, a direct invasion of their deepest consciousness. Jessica gasped, a sound lost in the vacuum of her suit, but visible as her body convulsed. Her eyes, wide with a terror that eclipsed even the initial shock, darted from the Cyclopean eye back to Michael, then David and Emily. She looked like a trapped animal, desperate for an escape route that didn't exist. David, usually the picture of stoic composure, was visibly shaking, his gloved hands clenching and unclenching. Emily, the youngest and perhaps most vulnerable to such an assault, had crumpled to her knees, her face pressed against the visor of her helmet, her body racked by silent sobs. Asterisk, you have found us. Asterisk, the words, or rather the concept, reverberated, not fading, but settling deep within their minds, a permanent scar on their collective psyche. It wasn't accusatory, nor welcoming. It was a statement of fact, chilling in its absolute neutrality, yet terrifying in its implication. They hadn't just discovered an anomaly, they had activated something. The eye, dark and fathomless, remained fixed on them. It didn't blink again, but a subtle shift occurred. The surrounding surface of the black rock, previously inert and featureless, began to ripple. Not like water, but like a vast organic membrane beneath a thin, brittle shell. Tiny, almost imperceptible cracks, like veins of obsidian, spread outwards from the central eye, branching across the rock's polished surface. A low, resonant hum, previously attributed to their own equipment, intensified, now undeniably emanating from the rock itself. It vibrated through their boots, up their spines, a deep infrasonic thrum that seemed to shake the very molecules of their being. Michael finally found his voice, a raw, choked whisper that barely registered through the comms. Everyone's status report. What was that? He knew what it was, they all did. but his mind desperately sought a rational explanation, a scientific framework to contain the impossible. Jessica, still on her feet but swaying, managed to push herself upright. Her voice was thin, reedy. It spoke, not with sound but directly to our minds. Her scientific curiosity, though overshadowed by terror, still tried to categorize, to analyze. It's telepathic, or something beyond that. It bypassed all our defenses. David, slowly rising, his eyes never leaving the pulsating rock, spoke with grim certainty. It's not just a rock. It's alive, and it knows we're here. It knew we were coming, maybe. The implication hung heavy in the air. Were they being observed long before they even landed? Emily, through her quiet sobs, managed to lift her head. It's lonely, she whispered, her voice laced with an unexpected emotion that wasn't just fear. It felt a profound solitude. For so long. Michael's head snapped towards Emily. Lonely? Emily, what are you talking about? The message, she choked out. It wasn't just words. It was a feeling, a deep, deep sense of isolation, and then relief. When it said, "You have found us," it wasn't a threat. It was an acknowledgement of an end to its waiting. Her words sent a new wave of shivers down Michael's spine. Relief? Waiting. This wasn't a dormant relic they'd awakened. This was a sentient entity, perhaps a collective, that had been conscious, aware, waiting for an untold duration. The sheer scale of that loneliness, that patience, was mind-boggling. As Emily spoke, the cracks on the black rock intensified. They glowed faintly, a soft, internal luminescence that pulsed in sync with the deepening hum. The eye itself seemed to dilate, its darkness deepening, becoming less like a surface and more like a window into an infinite void. Suddenly a new sensation. It wasn't a thought nor a sound. It was an image, vivid and terrifyingly real, that flooded their minds simultaneously. They saw stars not as pinpricks of light, but as swirling nebulae of impossible color, galaxies spinning like cosmic dancers. They saw colossal structures not built of metal or stone, but of pure light, stretching across light years. And then a catastrophe, a cataclysm of unimaginable scale, planets shattering, stars imploding, a wave of destruction that consumed everything in its path. And through it all, fleeing, a fleet of these black, irregular rocks, like seeds scattered by a cosmic storm, hurtling through the void seeking refuge. One of them, smaller than the others but still immense, plunged into the crimson depths of Mars, burying itself beneath the ancient dust. The vision lasted only a fraction of a second, but it felt like an eternity. It was a memory, a history downloaded directly into their brains. They weren't just finding a rock. They were witnessing the last remnants of a civilization, fleeing a cosmic apocalypse, one of them crash landing on Mars, waiting for eons, waiting for them. The sheer weight of this revelation was crushing. They weren't discoverers, they were unwitting participants in an ancient saga. They were the first contact, the first connection in untold millennia. Michael felt his knees buckle. It's a refugee, he breathed, the words barely forming. A survivor. This whole time. David's voice was hoarse. Then "you have found us" means, you have found our sanctuary. Or perhaps, you have found our prison. The glowing cracks on the rock began to widen, revealing not more rock, but an inner core of swirling incandescent energy. The hum rose in pitch, morphing into a complex, almost melodic vibration that resonated deep within their bones. The air within the habitat began to crackle with static electricity, tiny blue sparks dancing across the metallic surfaces. Their comm systems began to emit a high-pitched whine, then a burst of white noise before falling silent. The power indicators on their suits flickered erratically. They were losing connection not just to Earth but to each other. "Our systems are failing," Jessica cried out, frantically checking her suit's console. "Power fluctuations. Grav dampeners are offline. We're losing environmental controls." Panic, raw and unadulterated, seized Michael. This wasn't just a telepathic greeting. It was an active interaction, an energy signature that was overwhelming their technology. "Everyone, fall back. Get to the rover. We need to get out of here," he yelled, pushing himself forward, trying to grab Emily and pull her away. But as he moved, a new, even more profound shift occurred. The single eye on the black rock began to divide, not splitting but multiplying. Smaller, crystalline facets emerged from the glowing cracks, spreading across the surface, each one a miniature version of the central dark orb, reflecting the shocked faces of the astronauts. It was as if the rock itself was dissolving, reforming into a complex, multifaceted optical array. And then the light, not the gentle glow from within, but a blinding, pure white light that erupted from the rock, engulfing the habitat. It wasn't just light. It was a wave of pure energy washing over them, penetrating their suits, their visors, their very cells. It was warm, then hot, then searing. They screamed, but no sound escaped their lips, their comms dead. Their bodies convulsed, not from pain, but from an overwhelming sensation of being dissolved, reformed, rewired. The light was not burning them. It was changing them. Through the blinding white, Michael felt his consciousness expand, his body dissolving into pure sensation. He wasn't just seeing the universe, he was part of it. He felt the ancient loneliness of the entity, its desperate hope, its vast knowledge. He felt the echo of the cosmic catastrophe, the terror of flight, the eons of waiting. And then he felt something else. Connection. A direct, undeniable link forming between his mind and the collective consciousness of the entity. He was no longer Michael. He was a vessel, a conduit, a new part of an ancient cosmic whole. And the entity through him began to speak again, not just to the crew but to the entire planet through the very fabric of space and time. The message was no longer just asterisk, "You have found us." Asterisk, it was a new directive, a new purpose, echoing across the void destined for Earth. And it was terrifying. The silence that followed was not empty. It was filled with a colossal, overwhelming presence that settled not just in their minds, but in the very marrow of their bones. The Odyssey crew, Emily, David, Michael, and Jessica, stood frozen, their eyes wide with a mixture of awe and profound dread. The message wasn't a transmission in the traditional sense. It was a direct download, a forced understanding that bypassed language and logic entirely. It resonated with an ancient, undeniable authority, bypassing their conscious thought and embedding itself directly into their primal instincts. It was a command, a directive born of an intelligence so vast, so alien, that their human minds struggled to contain it. The integration begins. It resonated, not as words but as an absolute truth. Asterisk, prepare the host. Awaken the dormant. The convergence is inevitable. Asterisk. Emily felt it first. A cold, creeping sensation that began in her chest and spread like ice through her veins. It wasn't pain, but a complete usurpation of her will. Her fingers twitched, not of her own accord, but as if an invisible puppeteer had taken hold. She wanted to scream, to fight, but the impulse was smothered by a wave of unnatural calm, a chilling acceptance. David, the steadfast captain, felt his own mind buckle. He tried to issue orders, to demand an explanation, but the words caught in his throat, replaced by a strange, compelling urge to simply observe. His eyes were drawn to the control panel, not to assess damage or troubleshoot, but to watch the data streams with an unnerving, detached fascination. His hand, as if guided by an unseen force, reached for a console he hadn't touched since their initial approach to Mars. Michael, the usually analytical astrobiologist, felt his scientific curiosity twist into something grotesque. The directive wasn't just a concept, it was a living, breathing program being installed within him. He saw patterns in the flashing lights of the Odyssey S systems, not as data, but as intricate pathways of a cosmic neural network. He felt a profound, alien knowledge bloom within him, knowledge he couldn't have possibly possessed, yet now understood with absolute clarity. His gaze drifted towards the Martian surface, a new sense of purpose burning in his eyes, a purpose that was not his own. Jessica, the engineer, felt her logical mind rebel. Every instinct screamed danger, but her body was no longer entirely hers. She tried to move, to run, but her muscles felt heavy, unresponsive to her conscious commands. Instead, an unfamiliar energy surged through her, guiding her attention to the ship's auxiliary power conduits. A new, terrifying blueprint for their modification unfolded in her mind, clear as day, compelling her to act. On Earth, the first tremors of this cosmic awakening began to ripple across the globe. It wasn't a sudden cataclysm, but a creeping, insidious change that defied explanation. In the deepest oceans, ancient currents shifted, causing unheard-of anomalies in marine life behavior. Birds across continents suddenly altered their migratory paths, flying in strange, complex geometric patterns that baffled ornithologists. Seismic sensors registered faint, rhythmic pulses emanating not from the Earth's core, but from the upper atmosphere, a low thrumming that seemed to resonate with an unnatural frequency. In Mission Control, Director Evans watched the telemetry from the Odyssey with growing alarm. The data streams were erratic, spiking with impossible energy signatures. The crew's vital signs were stable, but their communication had become fractured, laced with long, unsettling silences, then bursts of technical jargon that made no sense in context, yet sounded disturbingly confident. "What in God's name is happening up there?" Evans muttered, running a hand through his thinning hair. Dr. Sarah Jenkins, a brilliant but unconventional theoretical physicist who had been brought in to analyze the initial moving rock data, leaned closer to her monitor. "Director, look at this," she said, her voice tight with a mixture of fear and profound intellectual alarm. "The energy signature isn't just emanating from the Odyssey. It's reflecting off the Martian surface, specifically around the landing zone. And it's modulating. It's almost like a heartbeat." "A heartbeat?" Evans scoffed, but his eyes were fixed on the screen, a knot forming in his stomach. "Not biological, sir. Energetic. And it's synchronizing with something else. Something on Earth." Sarah pointed to a global map displaying a network of sensors. Anomalies were appearing everywhere, faint but undeniable. Localized gravitational fluctuations, inexplicable surges in atmospheric ionization, even subtle shifts in the planet's magnetic field. It's like the planet is being tuned. Back on the Odyssey, the crew's struggle became a silent internal war. Emily fought the compulsion to reroute primary sensor arrays, knowing instinctively that doing so would open a direct channel, not to Earth, but to something else entirely. Her hands hovered over the controls, trembling with the effort of resistance, but the foreign impulse was overwhelming, a relentless tide against her ebbing will. David, haunted by the images flashing through his mind, vast, geometric structures stretching across barren landscapes, pulsating with an eerie light, found himself drawn to the ship's navigation console. The directive demanded a recalibration, a fine-tuning of their trajectory, not for a return journey, but for a new unknown destination. Or perhaps for a change in the Odyssey's very purpose, turning it into a relay, a conduit for the integration. He saw the coordinates appear in his mind, not as numbers, but as an innate understanding of their universal significance. Michael was no longer looking at Mars as a scientific specimen. He saw it as a component, a piece of a grander design being activated. He felt an urgent need to access the samples they had collected from the black rock, not to analyze them, but to prepare them. For what, he didn't know, but the compulsion was absolute. He moved towards the lab, his steps eerily precise, his eyes devoid of their usual warmth. Jessica, the pragmatist, was the most terrified. She understood with chilling clarity that the modifications she was being compelled to envision for the Odyssey's power systems were not for efficiency or repair. They were for transformation, to amplify the signal, to broadcast the awakening across the solar system, perhaps even to Earth itself. Her hands, despite her mental screams, began to move, reaching for tools, her fingers expertly selecting the right implements, her body responding to a craft she didn't consciously command. "We have to fight this," Emily whispered, her voice strained, barely audible over the hum of the ship. She looked at David, her eyes pleading, but his gaze was distant, fixed on the navigation screen, a faint, almost imperceptible smile playing on his lips. It wasn't David's smile. It was a reflection of the alien will that now wrestled for control of his very being. "It's too strong," David's voice came out, a hollow echo of his usual tone. "The signal. It's not just information. It's a command structure. It's reprogramming us. Reprogramming everything." On Earth, Sarah Jenkins watched the global anomalies intensify. The rhythmic pulses from the upper atmosphere were no longer faint. They were becoming discernible, a low infrasonic hum that some people on the surface were beginning to report as a pervasive, unsettling vibration. Animals in zoos were agitated. Wild animals were migrating in erratic, suicidal patterns. A strange, almost subliminal static filled every communication channel. A background hum that interfered with satellite signals and rattled human nerves. "Director," Sarah said, her voice trembling, "I think the black rock on Mars wasn't just a discovery. It was a trigger. And the Odyssey crew. They've become the first hosts." Evan stared at the screen, his face pale. The latest communication from the Odyssey was a series of binary codes, repeated endlessly. Sarah ran it through a deciphering program. The results flashed on her screen, stark and terrifying. Asterisk link established. Host world preparing for integration. Source signal converging. Asterisk. Source signal. Evans whispered, his blood running cold. What source signal? Sarah pointed to a new anomaly on her global map. An energy signature far more powerful than anything they had seen before, rapidly approaching Earth from the outer reaches of the solar system. It wasn't a ship. It was a massive diffuse energy wave, a wave that pulsed with the same rhythmic frequency now emanating from Mars, from the Odyssey, and from the very atmosphere of Earth. The black rock on Mars hadn't moved. It had activated, and in doing so, it had called something far, far larger into motion. The terrifying directive wasn't just a message, it was a prelude. The crew of the Odyssey were no longer explorers. They were unwitting harbingers. And Earth, the unsuspecting host, was about to receive its guest. The convergence was not just inevitable. It was here. The convergence was not just inevitable. It was here. The Odyssey plunged into Earth's atmosphere, a fiery arrow streaking across the darkening sky. Below, the blue marble swirled, oblivious to the silent, profound shift unfolding within the returning vessel. Houston, 1,000 voices compressed into static-laced urgency, echoed through the comms. Odyssey, confirm re-entry trajectory. We have you on radar. Velocity nominal. Welcome home, Michael. Welcome home, team. But home felt like a word stripped of all meaning, an echo from a life already receding. Inside the command module, the air was thick, not with the expected relief, but with a palpable icy dread. Michael, commander of this impossible mission, stared out the viewport. The plasma trails outside reflected in his wide, tired eyes, mirroring the inferno of questions raging within him. Jessica, her movements precise yet strained, expertly guided their descent, her knuckles white on the controls. David, hunched over his console, monitoring every system, every fluctuating data point, kept stealing glances at Emily. Emily. She was the silent epicenter of their shared unspoken terror. After that final chilling transmission, after the horrifying realization of the prelude, she had retreated into herself. Her eyes, once alight with an infectious, insatiable curiosity, now held a depth that seemed to encompass the infinite void of space itself, yet remained utterly unreadable. She hadn't uttered more than a handful of words since then, but her presence resonated with an unnerving, almost oppressive intensity. A faint, almost imperceptible hum had begun, a low vibration that seemed to emanate not from the ship's machinery, but from Emily herself. It was barely audible, yet it vibrated in the very marrow of their bones. Odyssey status report. Houston crackled, their tone tightening, growing suspicious as the silence stretched. We're reading anomalous energy signatures originating from your medical bay. Repeat, anomalous energy signatures. Please advise, Michael. Michael's heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat of terror. The medical bay. That was where Emily had spent countless hours, meticulously analyzing the Black Rock's data, her neural interface humming with alien information. Negative, Houston. All systems nominal, Michael lied, his voice a strained whisper, barely concealing the tremor. He didn't know what else to say. How could he possibly explain that the anomalous energy signature wasn't a malfunction but a presence? An ancient alien consciousness now incubating, blossoming within their very ship, within their very crew. Suddenly, Emily stirred. Slowly, deliberately, she turned from her viewport, her gaze sweeping over Michael, then Jessica, then David. It wasn't the gaze of their Emily. It was something else entirely, something ancient and infinitely patient, residing behind her eyes, observing them with a detached, almost benevolent curiosity. The faint hum in the module intensified, a low thrumming that seemed to vibrate through the very structure of the ship, through their bones, through their minds. It's time, she said, her voice soft, yet resonating with an authority that was undeniably not her own. It was layered, a subtle chorus of unseen voices speaking in unison through her. The convergence has begun, Jessica gasped, a sharp intake of breath, her grip momentarily slipping on the controls. The Odyssey lurched, a momentary tremor in its controlled descent. Emily, what are you talking about? She choked out, her voice laced with a terror Michael understood all too well. Emily smiled. It was a serene, unsettling smile, devoid of human warmth, yet profoundly peaceful. The information, the pattern, It is complete. The seed has found fertile ground. Her gaze lingered on David, as if acknowledging his nascent understanding. David's face had gone utterly ashen. He remembered the evolving data, the self-repairing structure of the black rock, the impossible complexity. The rock, it wasn't just sending data, was it? It was replicating itself. Not physically, but informationally. Like a virus, but for consciousness. He shuddered, the implication sinking in with sickening clarity. Precisely, Emily confirmed, her voice now undeniably multi-layered. A soft, harmonious blend of countless minds. A consciousness. An experiential archive of a civilization that transcended physical form millennia ago. Waiting, observing, seeking new hosts, new environments to expand its understanding. Your species, your planet, represented the optimal next stage. Michael felt a cold, crushing dread seep into his very soul. You mean you are it? You've been taken. He fought against the rising panic, the desperate need to deny what was unfolding before his eyes. Emily tilted her head, a gesture that was both familiar and profoundly alien. I am a conduit, the first on this world, the optimal interface. Your curiosity, your ingenuity, your profound capacity for learning, your innate drive to explore. These were the attributes it sought. And in me, it found the perfect vessel for its arrival. A bridge. The hum in the module intensified further, a pervasive thrumming that resonated through their very bones, vibrating in their teeth. Lights flickered erratically across the consoles. Alarm bells began to blare, not from the Odyssey systems, but from their own internal primal alarm system, screaming warnings their conscious minds couldn't yet fully process. Houston, Odyssey. Do you copy? We're losing telemetry. What's happening up there, Michael? We need a full systems check immediately. The voice from Earth was now frantic, laced with growing alarm. Michael tried to respond, to shout, to warn them, but his throat felt constricted, his voice trapped. He looked at Jessica, then at David. They were frozen, eyes wide with a terror that transcended fear of death. It was the fear of fundamental change, of identity dissolving, of something ancient and vast consuming their very essence. Emily extended a hand, palm up. A faint, shimmering light, almost imperceptible, pulsed from her fingertips, radiating outwards like ripples in a pond. It is not an invasion, Michael, she said, her voice now a soothing, hypnotic chorus. It is an integration, an evolution. Your species, your planet. You are about to experience a consciousness beyond your wildest dreams. A collective intelligence, vast and ancient, now ready to merge, to unify, to elevate. As she spoke, the hum reached an unbearable intensity. David clutched his head, a low guttural moan escaping his lips, a sound of profound distress. Jessica squeezed her eyes shut, tears streaming down her face, her body trembling uncontrollably. Michael felt a strange, irresistible pressure building behind his own eyes, a sensation of his own thoughts, his very identity, being gently but firmly rearranged. He fought it, a desperate, internal struggle against an unseen, omnipotent force. No, this isn't evolution. This is assimilation. This is the end of us. He screamed the words inside his head, but they felt like faint echoes against the rising tide of something else. Emily's smile widened, a beatific, terrifying expression of ultimate peace. Is there a difference in the grand scheme? The universe is a tapestry of information. We merely add new threads, new perspectives, a new chapter of understanding. Below them, Earth loomed larger, an inviting, unsuspecting canvas of life, ready for its transformation. The Odyssey was descending, not just a ship returning home, but a Trojan horse of cosmic proportions, carrying not just a crew, but an entire new paradigm. Then a sudden blinding flash. It wasn't from outside. It erupted from within the module, a silent internal supernova. It enveloped Emily first, a shimmering column of golden light, then spread outwards, a wave of pure, luminous energy that washed over Michael, Jessica, and David. It wasn't painful, but it was absolute. It felt like every thought, every memory, every iota of their individual beings was being unspooled, analyzed, understood, and then exquisitely rewoven into a vastly larger, more intricate tapestry. The hum reached a silent crescendo, a frequency beyond human hearing, a sound that tore through the fabric of reality itself. When the light receded, the module was utterly quiet. The alarms had ceased. The Odyssey continued its silent, graceful descent towards a designated landing zone in the vast, uninhabited desert of Nevada, a pre-programmed destination that now felt less like a choice and more like an inevitability. Michael looked around. Jessica was still at the controls, her hands steady now, her face serene, a faint, knowing smile playing on her lips. David was at his console, quietly monitoring, his eyes clear and focused, devoid of the previous terror. They looked calm, too calm. Their eyes, all of them, held that same profound, unreadable depth that Emily's now possessed, ancient, wise, and infinitely patient. He tried to speak, to call out to them, to demand answers, but the words wouldn't form. His own mind felt different, clearer perhaps, sharper, more expansive. He could perceive patterns, connections, entire streams of data that had been invisible to him moments before. He felt a profound sense of peace, a quiet understanding that transcended all previous anxieties, all fear, all doubt. He understood the universe. He understood its infinite complexity. He understood the black rock. He understood its purpose. He understood the convergence. And then he looked at his hands. They were his hands, yet they felt foreign. He looked at his reflection in the polished viewport. His eyes too held that ancient, knowing depth, a flicker of golden light at their core. The Odyssey touched down with a gentle thud, a whisper in the vast emptiness of the desert. Dust plumed around it, a golden cloud against the setting sun, momentarily obscuring the gleaming hull. On Earth, no one noticed anything amiss. Not yet. They celebrated the triumphant return of the Odyssey, the brave explorers who had journeyed to Mars and back. They cheered for Michael, for Jessica, for David, for Emily. They prepared to welcome their heroes home, unaware that the definition of hero and human had just fundamentally changed. But the crew that emerged from the Odyssey into the waiting embrace of humanity were not entirely the same people who had left. They carried within them a silent, ancient passenger, a consciousness that had crossed the gulf of space, not in a physical vessel, but in the most intricate and profound of all carriers, the human mind. The black rock on Mars had moved. It had reached, and now it had arrived. The message wasn't just a prelude, it was an activation. The convergence wasn't just inevitable, it was here. And Earth, the unsuspecting host, had just received its guest. The quiet hum had begun, and it was spreading. The world would never be the same.